Hey fools, David Hansen here. Much has been made of Bank of America's 92% rise over the past year. Citigroup, on the other hand, they're up around 95% over the past year. Now, those gains have potentially done a couple of things for investors. A, it might have scared off some investors, think they missed the boat on these stocks, or just think that big bank stocks are too volatile for them. Or B, it's diminished the returns of a JPMorgan or Wells Fargo. We look at the big four there. JPMorgan's up 55% over the past year, but compared to Citigroup and Bank of America, it's a laggard. And then on the other hand, we have Wells Fargo up 29%. That's essentially just keeping pace with the S&P 500 there. So while everybody loves huge capital gains, investors should not ignore the dividends from these two. I mean, based on today's price, Wells Fargo is yielding 3% and JPMorgan is yielding 2.9%. This is far outpacing Bank of America, who yields 0.3%, and Citigroup, who yields 0.08% on their 1-cent dividends there. So when I look across sectors here, we look at a Johnson & Johnson, kind of seeing it as a strong dividend payer there. And they're also yielding around 3%, just like Wells Fargo or JPMorgan. But when I look at the two stocks and which has more upside from a price perspective, Johnson & Johnson is trading at 24 times trailing earnings. And while JPMorgan and Wells Fargo, they're still kind of more highly valued than Bank of America and Citigroup, they're still relatively cheap from a historical perspective. So I wouldn't necessarily be scared that they don't have as much upside as a Johnson & Johnson. So now, we all know dividends are not set in stone, and most investors believe Bank of America and Citigroup will ultimately raise their dividends from that 1 cent once they have these legal and balance sheet issues resolved. So with these big banks still trading at cheaper multiples than a Wells Fargo and JPMorgan, I think if you're buying today, despite the run-up over the past year, you can expect a pretty solid dividend yield going forward if you have a long-term investing horizon. Again, this is David Hansen, and you can always read more on Fool.com.